Welcome to Aging Untold. Today we're talking neurodiversity in older adults, which includes ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and OCD. For neurodiverse older Americans, staying focused and on track can get a lot harder when retirement or health changes take away routines. Amy, where should families start if they think an older loved one may be neurodivergent?
Well, some people would think, what does that have to do with aging and why is it a problem? And I think about energy level. How much energy it takes to manage your, whatever the diagnosis is. Mm-hmm. And as you lose energy and you get older, the coping becomes harder and harder. Mm-hmm. The support structure might change. Maybe there's a move coming up, or maybe there's care coming in. So there's caregivers or other people that are going to be interacting that might not understand how to work with someone who has a neurodivergent diagnosis.
You're saying diagnosis, and what I say is most were never diagnosed.
Right.
And so it's a bit easier to understand when the diagnosis came, but the first time anybody even said to me,
True.
I remember it. I was an adult, I was teaching a class, and one of my former teachers was in the class. And in the middle of it, she goes, "You're as ADHD as you always were." And I'm like, what? It's the first time somebody put a label on me. And I was like, well, that kind of label.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And so then I had to go back and I went to my own school records, and every teacher had noted it.
But nobody had told you.
But nobody told me because it worked for me. And so we're talking about a bootstrap generation. We're talking about people that were told, you pull your bootstraps up and you just deal with life. So they learned how to manage these issues and how to cope. And then as we age, our coping skills change and our tolerance level lessens.
Well, the biggest thing medically is differentiating between someone who has neurodiversity and now they have dementia.
Right.
So they're not the same, but if you didn't recognize it before and now you have dementia or cognitive decline, you have to kind of recognize that. You have to look at, is this person has always been how they were the whole time?
Right.
Then that's not dementia.
So I think we're familiar, if we've been around a while, so we're familiar with like little boys in the 1970s being diagnosed with ADHD, and they were put in those awful corrals and given Ritalin. But also could be little girls that are really into perfectionism or very emotional, really into daydreaming. But this has been humans all along. It's just that it wasn't something talked about, diagnosed. And so sometimes it's grandma and grandpa getting diagnosed, or, maybe it's not just they're quirky, maybe that's just how they think.
Right.
And so there's a podcast called Grandma Has ADHD, which is a really great resource. And then that lady put together a book called This Explains So Much, like grandmothers going, oh.
Sure.
And I think even asking the question, could this person have a neurodiverse diagnosis? And then getting them structured, like if they have a doctor's appointment, write down the questions ahead of time. Let the staff know at that appointment, this might be a neurodivergent. Can you help me figure out what this is? It'll lower caregiver frustration if it's a diagnosis and not just the irritating guy that acts whatever.
The thing is, we're waiting later on in life to even ask that question.
Right.
When you're running all around and not focused and all that,
Yeah.
we might need to identify that earlier on, so that other things that come on, it makes the division much easier.
Yeah. So
I ask families all the time, and you said it, is this a new behavior? And so my kids would attest to you that there were things that bothered me when they were young. I manage them much, much better now. But I know as I get older, those things like the vent fan in a bathroom, the vent fan in a kitchen, things like that are really irritants.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize and correlate it with my neurodivergency. And I didn't understand. So is this something that's always been?
Yeah.
Then we might not need to diagnose this and label it so much older. That's not so valuable at this point. I don't think getting another label attached to somebody is that valuable.
Right.
But understanding how to manage it, if you think that it's there, then read up and learn and understand, hey, guess what? This may be why grandma doesn't like to shower. Maybe it's too loud in there.
Right.
Maybe all of the grandkids at once are just too much stimulation, and we need to lessen some of that.
And asking the question, if you think they might be neurodivergent, should you get them assessed? And I think it depends.
Okay.
Like we talk about, one person is one person, but I think that question being asked is a valued one.
Everyone's brain works a little differently.
Sure.
I'm not a big one for labels either.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If there are children or younger people in your family that have ADHD, as an example,
Might want to look where it came from.
it runs in families. And sometimes it's a superpower.
Sure.
Because you have,
Multitasking.
yeah, and ADHD, there's talk that that's not
Yeah.
a great label anyway. And there's another label, but it actually means that you have the ability to be focused on the things you're very interested in. So some of the most brilliant, most productive people in society have had some of these things going on.
Sure.
And so it's just about really understanding yourself better and maybe why different choices were made along the way.